Let's pick up on the celebrations. Today, a big day for the country as the Rugby World Cup champions, the Springboks, land on home soil. The Bokke beat New Zealand 12-11 points, making it a fourth World Cup win. They are expected to arrive at OR Tambo International Airport this morning to hundreds of cheering supporters. But what is the significance of this win? What does it mean for our country? Talking to me now is a former rugby player himself, played for Ireland, John Robbie, and also a broadcaster. John, good morning to you, and I'm not apologizing for waking you up. How should we as South Africans interpret this win by the Boks?
Hey, Polly, I think there's different levels of it. First of all, it's a sporting victory that is magnificent, and we lead the world in rugby. There's no question about it now. We've won 4, we've won 2 back-to-back away from home, which the New Zealanders couldn't do. So on its own, it is amazing achievement. But more than that, I think that on the other scale, you could say, well, after the euphoria, there is still massive poverty in the country. The electricity doesn't work. We see incompetence all over the place. I mean, that public inquiry into the building, that terrible fire in Johannesburg, had to be postponed because the building in which the inquiry was taking place wasn't safe. I mean, that just sort of encapsulates a lot of the incompetence that is around at the moment. We know about state capture, etc. But there's a lesson. I mean, I think that when you take the emotion out of it and to tie in another world story, you look at Gaza at the moment, that could be South Africa. That could be South Africa had things not worked in the negotiation, Mandela, de Klerk, etc. So South Africa is still a magnificent success story. But the point is it should be so much better. That's the point that makes everybody so cross, except maybe our politicians. Yeah. And I think what Sia, what Rassie, what Jacques and the players have done is they've shown what if you work together and you get rid of ego and you get rid of bias and so on and work together, we can do anything. And what we have to do now is not just have this little celebration, not just have Cyril's Day, public holiday, but let us take it and start to apply that everybody in works of life, and we can still make it. But so there's all sorts of different levels to look at. Yeah. But it was an amazing achievement, and at times we won dirty, we won ugly, at times we won magnificent. But yeah, it's an emotional time. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, John, at the back of your mind to keep Ireland, because we know the connection between yourself and Ireland, but that will be the final question. Let me immediately launch into the tweet that you put out yesterday, and you said these words: congratulations to the Springboks. Instead of politicians, how about flying Sia, Jacques and Rassie to India to give the Proteas a boost before the knockouts? John, I sense there that there is something quite pregnant that you wanted to blurt out about our political leadership in the country. Say it out loud. What it is it about our politicians that just doesn't work?
Let me tell you, many years ago, when there were real problems in South Africa with Winnie Madikizela Mandela, I mean, heroine of the struggle, there's no question. We know the story, and I've just finished that wonderful book about the marriage by Johnny Steinberg, and that's a book every South African should read. But I remember when there was problems with the Mandela Football Club, Stompie Sapai, that terrible, Dr. Asfat, that terrible time in South African history. And I remember at the time getting Cyril Ramaphosa on 702. And I remember because a lot of listeners were phoning up and saying, yes, but she was treated terribly. Yes, she's a heroine of the struggle. That's got to have some impact. And I vividly remember speaking to Cyril Ramaphosa then, President Ramaphosa now, and I said, should struggle credentials have any weight when it comes to dealing with crime and incompetence and so on at the moment? And I'll never forget his words. He looked at me and he said, John, in power we must be judged by the highest standards. And I've never forgotten that. And I'd love to speak to the president now and say, you know, Mr. President, if we're judging you by the highest standards, it's been an absolute failure, particularly the years since Zuma, and you could argue in your particular years. And it just struck me like I got a sense of, I don't know, anger when I saw politicians basking in glory at the Rugby World Cup. And of course, the cricket has snuck up on us. No one gave them a chance, and they've done absolutely fabulously. And I just thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if instead of flying politicians out to milk the glory, you stuck a couple of the rugby guys there, not to try and tell cricket what to do or get him out, but just to say, guys, we did it, and this is how we did it, and we're right behind you. And I think it would send a powerful, powerful message. It was sort of on a whim, but the reaction to it has been unbelievable. Yeah. The number of people who supported the idea. So, maybe it's pie in the sky, but my intentions, I assure you, were good.
John, final question to you, and I hope politicians are going to take heart in what you are saying and not just think that we are criticizing mindlessly. There's a message there. John, let's conclude this conversation. Ireland, they were number one going into this World Cup. They were rated number one, but they crashed out. What happened, and how was the feeling as someone who played for that nation?
Well, I'm a South African now. You can't believe how pissed off my Irish friends get when I say I'm a South African supporter. But first of all, Ireland didn't exactly crash out. It was in two nail-biting quarterfinals that both went down to the wire. But if you look at the World Cup, it's actually very clever. Now, forget the problem with the ridiculous draw being done far too early. In fairness, it was done so fans could save money by booking way in advance. So there was nothing untoward or nasty about it. But if you think of the World Cup, you've got the pool stage, which means, gee whiz, the stamina you have to come through a pool with 5 different teams in it. And then you've got the knockout phase. So it tests two sides of a team's ability. It tests their stickability and their stamina, and then it tests the ability for big match temperament. It's almost like you took the English League and the FA Cup and combined them together as a test of a team. Well, Ireland won certainly the first test. They passed with flying colours. They beat the Springboks, although if we'd had a kicker, we could have beaten them, I believe. But they passed that test. We, with the wobble against Ireland, passed the test as well. In the second half, you've got 3 finals in a row, and we won them both by a point, including beating the favourites and the home team, France, including a poor performance against England that we managed to win, and then that nail-biting finish against the All Blacks. So there's a lot of sour grapes going around at the moment. Yeah. I think that the Springboks are not popular, maybe because of the physical approach, whatever, but the end result is, by whatever way you look at the game, we won deservedly. We've won twice away from home, the Rugby World Cup back-to-back. Now let's take that incredible achievement and use it as a sort of a metaphor or a talisman to sort out other things in the country. And let's look back on an opportunity that wasn't like the 2010 Soccer World Cup that wasn't wasted. That's my ultimate dream.
John Robbie, thank you very much for your inputs there. And indeed, what a pleasure to talk to you, former broadcaster and former rugby player himself.